Good morning or afternoon, everyone, depending on where you're joining us from today. Apologies for the slight delay. We were having a few technical issues. Thank you for being here. We're going to give it about 30 seconds for everyone to keep joining and get connected. Feel free to let us know in the chat where you're joining us from today. We're expecting people from different countries. I'm Maria, and I'll be your moderator for this session. So once again, welcome to today's executive briefing. We're here to open the black box of ESG assessments. As we're moving further into 2026, we're seeing that just collecting data isn't enough anymore. So we're here to see what can be done about this gap between having data and actually getting a top-tier rating. We've brought together the experts from S&P Global, Finvizier Consultancies, and Tekmon to give you this roadmap for what's coming next. Two things to keep in mind. We are recording this session and you'll receive the full recording and slide deck tomorrow. This is a mics off session, so we stay on schedule, but we encourage you to stay active. So please submit your questions at the QA box throughout the presentations, and we'll address as many as possible during our Q&A sessions. To kick us off, we have the team from Finvizier, who will help us understand why these ratings actually matter and the must-haves for a strong rating. We have Darya Gaeva, Head of ESG Advisory, with 13 years of experience in a climate strategy and ESG disclosures across both Europe and the GCC region. With her is Pavel Shamanov, Head of Business Development and expert in translating sustainability data into investor-ready outcomes. Joining them as well is Teden Edgev, who will handle the interactive Q&A for this portion. He's an ESG manager and specialist in GHG assessments. The floor is yours. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Great to see you all today in this session. As Maria just mentioned, my name is Pavel Shamanov. I'm a head of business development at a company called Finvizier. And perhaps as a first one to introduce this topic today, I would like to just set a little context for the webinar and the idea that came about. So at Finvizier, we sit across the intersection between sustainability consulting and financial consulting, and we regularly speak to companies who are trying to understand what are the sustainability and ESG requirements on a daily basis and what it means for various different stakeholders. So, and this is how this idea that we should really create a webinar on the topic that covers how the companies move from ESG data to the ESG ratings. And this is why we brought our technical partners, Tekmon, with Panos, talking about how the data is collected, how it's put up in sustainability reports, and what does it actually mean for ESG ratings. And for that area of expertise, we've asked our colleague from S&P ESG rating team, Alicia, to join us, and that's a leading ESG rating agency. And where do we sit in this context? I'll just see the slides flick through. We are, as a licensed management consulting, we sit across the whole perspective of where the sustainability starts and where it ends. So from the data, how that feeds into companies, puts together into sustainability reports, and transition this into measurable outcomes. So why we sort of are able to talk about this? So we represent a group of experts who work across different companies, starting from sovereigns, local governments, also corporates and financial institutions. We represent a team of experts who understand what ESG requirements within the market, and we have, as you will see, a relationship with various stakeholders who also participate in this whole process. And so far, we've helped a number of clients to achieve really outstanding results. And no matter where the company is in terms of their process on ESG and sustainability journey. So just to give you an example, we've helped one of the clients to get into top 10% of the world in terms of S&P CSA ESG rating, but also working with other ESG rating agencies, such as, for example, CDP. So that allowed us to see the whole picture, whole perspective of how companies are getting ready for this process, and what are the underwater stones that people should be mindful of when they were doing this process. And hopefully, within today's session, you will understand how the data flow gets collected together for the purpose of ESG rating process, feeds into sustainability reports, and results into achievable and measurable results. Now, I will stop here and I will pass along you to my colleagues. But before I do that, I will really encourage you to submit your questions into Q&A, and also please reach out to us directly following this webinar. We'll be really happy to speak to you and to chat to you about this topic and explore some other areas of this theme. So without further ado, I would like to pass the word to our head of ESG consulting within Finvizier, and Darya Gaeva. Please, the floor is yours.
Yes, Pavel. Thank you very much for this introduction. Colleagues, good afternoon. I'm very pleased to share these insights today on the ESG rating process. What is an ESG rating, how it is structured, why it does matter, and how for the company to obtain the best rating outcome. So, Pavel, can you please move to the next slide? Okay, thank you. Now we would like to start with a short, quick poll. So now I'll try to. Yes. I think this one. Yes. So, do you see? Perfect. I'll give you about 1 minute to pass this short questionnaire. It will be very useful for us to understand the audience interest in this theme in general. Yes, we can see first results. Perfect. Great. I think that's enough. Yes, I can share these results with the audience, I think, and I hope you see the results. So we can see that, for example, investor and lender expectation, or supply chain requirements, or regulatory compliance have these high numbers of responses. Overall, this is consistent with the way the companies view ESG ratings in other broad-based surveys. And on the next slide, Pavel, may I ask you please to move on the next slide? Yes, this slide shows the results of the survey of ERM. ERM is a company which regularly conducts its researches, and they monitor, in general, global ESG rating landscape. So, as part of its 2025 research, ERM surveyed corporate professionals from 39 countries and 28 sectors of the economy. So, you can see here what, according to their opinion, is the most important reason for engagement with ESG ratings. And we can see now that, for example, investor demand, performance assessment, strategy development is really one of the most important reasons why do they engage with rating assessments, rating providers. We will also refer back to these findings and to other findings of that research later in our presentation. So, yes, Pavel, thank you. Can you please move on to the next slide? Thank you. Now, very brief let us look what is an ESG rating and why it's important. The key point is that an ESG rating is a final assessment of an organization's overall profile. At different levels within an organization, various ESG aspects may be integrated. However, in order to assess the effectiveness, soundness, relevance, and ambitiousness of these matters, an independent assessment is needed. So such an assessment is important because it gives the organization's management or investors or lenders a certain level of confidence. And this is exactly the kind of the assessment or that ESG ratings provide us.
Darya, there is a problem hearing you well. It's not very clear. I don't know if you can, move a bit. Yeah.
Okay. I'll try to speak louder.
No, it's better. Yeah. Okay, great.
Perfect. Pavel, may I ask you please to move on to the next slide? Yes. And the next one. So it's a general overview of rating agencies. As I already mentioned earlier, there are a very large number of ESG rating providers in the market. At the same time, the level of trust to these rating providers and perception of their quality and usefulness varies significantly. On this slide, we once again see findings from year-end survey. It is really very useful, and I recommend it to you to look at by way. As we can see, according to investors surveyed in 2023, the rating viewed as the strongest in terms of usefulness and quality were those provided by CDP, ISS, Sustainalytics, S&P, Bloomberg, and EcoVadis. At the same time, in 2025, representatives of the corporate sector identified almost the same set of ratings, except of Bloomberg. Pavel, may you please move to the next slide? Thank you.
I'm sorry to cut in, but we're having a lot of audio troubles. Maybe a bit closer or the volume to be turned up. Is that possible?
Going very close to the laptop, but okay.
Or perhaps it's an internet connection issue, so I'm sorry.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Darya.
I try. Now, on this slide, it is a brief picture of how ESG rating approach differs. So if we try to group these differences, we can identify three main categories. The first one is differences in methodology, indicators, weighting, sector-specific adjustment. The second one is differences in the subject of assessment. Some focuses on ESG risk exposure, other on general sustainability performance or disclosure levels, for example. The third one is differences in technical parameters, including scoring scales, weighting, data sources, assessment frequency, coverage, etc. But before, I would also point out one more weakness. It is a low correlation across ratings. According to different researchers, ESG assessment of the same companies may vary significantly depending on the provider. For example, unlike credit rating, where correlation across agencies typically exceed 0.9, ESG ratings may show correlation levels below 0.6, unfortunately. So, Pavel, can you please move to the next slide? Thank you. On this slide and the next one, we present comparative overview of 14 major ESG rating providers Unfortunately, due to time constraints, I will not able to go into everything in details, but I would like to draw your attention to a few key differences. Thus, focus on assessment differ. For example, CDP assess the company's profile in climate. Sustainalytics, MSCI, and RepRisk focus on companies' exposure and resilience to ESG risks. And S&P and ISS assess companies' ESG profile across a broad range of different indicators, although ISS places a stronger emphasis on corporate governance. As for EcoVadis, its focuses on evaluating the sustainability of the company's supply chain. Also, we can see the difference, for example, in companies' abilities to initiate a rating. It is not always available and may be subject to certain limitations. For example, it is not possible to obtain a solicited rating from MSCI at all. By contrast, ISS does offer solicited assessment on a paid basis, but such solicited ratings are not included in ISS public database on its websites. Also, for example, we can see differences in approach with completing a questionnaire, and if we're talking about public available. Again, some problems with the volume. Sorry, Chris. Okay, if we're talking about public availability of the underlying data, this is very important factors for the vast majority of ESG rating providers. In some cases, it is critical, as with MSCI and Sustainalytics. In others, public disclosure is not strictly mandatory, but publicly available information carries significantly greater weight than non-public data, as in the case with S&P, for example. Pavel, may you please move to the next slide? So it is like just continuous of the previous one to the next one. Perfect. This slide simply provides a visual illustration of the rating scales used by different agencies. Accordingly, red indicates the weakest result and green indicates the strongest. To the next one. Okay, now let us step slightly aside and look at some examples of public ESG assessments in the United Arab Emirates. Just to clarify, we will only show those ratings that can be disclosed because have already been made publicly, including in their organization's reports, press releases, etc. So this slide represents the banking sector assessment that is currently publicly and freely available. As we can see, LSEG provides the broader coverage. Also, there are some issues regarding the depth of the assessment. If you focus on the providers that carry the strongest authority in the market, Sustainalytics offers the best coverage. However, Sustainalytics tend to assess local banks as having a relatively high level of ESG risks. And overall, there is very little green on this slide. So very little UAE banks currently have best in sector ESG assessment. To the next slide, please. These are examples for corporate sector. Again, Sustainalytics coverage is even broader here. And also we can see the greater coverage from ISS and from number of climate focused ratings. To the next slide, please. So we are moving to rating difference as well from the practice view. Yeah, thank you. So this slide shows how leading companies in the mining and metal sector are assessed by different ESG ratings. To illustrate illustrate this as clear as possible, we would like to highlight three specific cases. The first one, a company can be a leader in climate as by CDP, but have high exposure to ESG risks by Sustainalytics. This may happen because CDP focus on climate risks, while Sustainalytics on general ESG risks material to the company sector and region. The second case is a company can be a leader in S&P CSA, but be laggard in MSCI assessment. This may happen because S&P uses specific questionnaire, while MSCI focuses on publicly available information only. And the third case is ISS. ISS scores are almost the same for metals and mining sector, while MSCI scores vary significantly. This happens because ISS has general view on the sector, while MSCI focuses on how a company stands among peers. Take it to the next slide. Pavel, thank you. So we're moving to a rating process and the next one. Thank you. As I mentioned earlier, assessment approach differ across ESG rating providers. In some cases, rating is issued without the company direct participation, by the request of investor or by the provider's own initiative, for example. In other cases, the company must apply for an assessment by itself to initiate the rating process and thus to demonstrate its intention and engagement. However, in general, we can divide ESG rating process in 4 key stages. You can see the stages on the slide. So we are moving forward because we have a limited time. So can you please move to the next slide? Thank you. If we look at the data and documents reviewed by ESG analysts, they can broadly be divided in 4 groups. You can see the groups here on the slide as well. Questionnaire, policies and internal routines, all quantitative and qualitative data and performance metrics, all formalized public reporting. All of these can be assessed, and at the same time, I would like to stress out one more time that the issue of public availability applies not only to the 4th group, but to all the data which is assessed by the rating agency. To the next slide, please. Yes, thank you. On this slide, we can see an illustrated assessment timeline across major 3 ESG providers. As an example, if we are talking about CDP, so CDP conducts its company assessment only once per year within a single annual circle. The openings data for questionnaire submission may vary slightly from year to year, but the overall logic remains the same. There is one assessment window, and the start and the end of the circle are broadly fixed for all companies worldwide, with only minor deviation of a few weeks in exception cases upon individual request. And by contrast, for example, Sustainalytics doesn't publish a fixed timetable and may shift assessment at its own decision. To the next slide, please. Yeah. Yes, but before I would like to have one more quiz, please. I think this one. Perfect. 1 minute to participate in this quiz. Perfect. And already I see some leaders in responses. Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you a lot for your answering. So now I'm ending the poll and I can share results with you. I hope that you see these results. Thank you again for taking part in the poll. I can already see these insights and important information for me, but in general, again, overall, all the weaknesses reflected on this slide are in a broad sense relevant for most companies that go through the rating process. Again, due to time constraint, I will not go further in details, but data quality coverage, proper navigating ESG methodologies, clear internal ownership, all these remain absolutely critical to achieve the strongest possible result. And to the next slide, please. Okay, so the last poll from my side. I think, perfect. But actually, I can't start it. Okay, I do not know why, Maria. Unfortunately, I can't. Oh, sorry. Perfect. Yeah.
Okay.
I see. Perfect. 1 minute. It is the last one from my side. One second. Okay. So thank you. Thank you all. I can share these results. I hope that you see them. But again, I think that one of the most correct answers here is that all of these steps are really important to obtain the best ESG rating. So we have some time limitation, so please move to the next slide. Yes, and the next one. So it is the last one. It is just basic practical recommendations how to improve your ESG rating. I will leave it here. You can later study it in more details, and please just use it as a checklist to understand whether you are ready or not to obtain the best ESG score you can. Thank you a lot to everybody, and now I can stop my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Darya, for these insights. If the audience has any questions, that Tseden on your end can also take over. Let us know if there are any questions, and then we can move forward to the next portion. If you don't have questions at the time being, we can get to them at the end to give you more time to maybe digest the information you just heard. As I'm not seeing any questions at the moment and we need to move forward, I think we can give the floor to Panos Fadel, I see a raised hand. This is a mic off session. If you are able to type your question in the chat box, thank you very much. And we will get to it at the end. Panos Mitsios is from Tekmon, the Chief Operations Officer and co-founder, actually. And he is here today to talk about the ESG data management challenges and more on that. Pano, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you all. Let me share my screen first of all. I guess you can see my screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. In this session, I will try to walk you through how organizations can transform the raw ESG data into high-quality, top-tier sustainability ratings. And I will not focus only on reporting, but also on building how to build a structured, scalable ESG data process that actually works in practice. And before we dive in, just a quick word about Tekmon. We're an enterprise software company focused on helping organizations manage complex operational processes, including ESG reporting, health and safety, quality, and asset management. We work with a wide range of large organizations across industries, from energy and manufacturing to infrastructure and hospitality, where actually managing distributed data and processes is a daily challenge. At the core, Tekmon is an AI-powered no-code platform designed to manage operational processes across three key areas: quality, health and safety, and environmental, including ESG. And the idea of Tekmon is simple. Instead of using disconnected tools or manual processes, organizations can build and manage their workflows in one unified system. And this becomes especially important for ESG because ESG, as you know, data does not live in one place. It spans across multiple departments, systems, and of course, responsibilities. Building on that, Tekmon provides all-in-one platform specifically designed for sustainability and carbon management. What we help organizations do is establish a reliable, structured process to collect, manage, and report ESG data end-to-end. This includes, of course, greenhouse gas emission across all scopes 1, 2, and 3, ensures compliance across different frameworks, GRI, SRS, other virus and rating agencies as well, data. At the same time, organization can track performance against sustainability goals and visualize everything through customizable dashboards. And of course, importantly, all of this can be configured without code, and this is something that we try to differentiate. Now, before we talk about solution, let's take a step back and look at the reality of most organizations face when it comes to ESG data. First, ESG data is typically spread across multiple departments and data owners, which makes, and of course, data owners are also spread across different departments, which makes coordination slow and fragmented. Second, ensuring data accuracy and consistency is a real challenge in most cases. Many organizations still rely on manual processes to do that, spreadsheet, emails, multiple sources, which makes auditability very difficult. And third, reporting requirements are constantly, as you know, evolving. Frameworks and regulations change frequently, which means companies have to continuously adapt how they collect and structure their data. So overall, ESG is not just a reporting challenge, it's fundamentally a data management problem. So this is a chart in 4 different layers that we suggest companies structure the way that they collect and report data. In the first layer, companies need to understand where the data owners are actually need to have access. So you need to create your organization, as we call it, structured layer, meaning which are the data owners, where they need to have access in any kind of system, what are your companies, your subsidiaries, your building locations, even in some cases, you have go and drill down to the meters area. In the second layer, you need to create the data pipelines. There are 4 ways to do that. Maybe, for example, you have an external supplier that provides spreadsheets. You need to be able to upload these spreadsheets and not having someone to copy and pasting data to a platform. You need to report to questionnaires. So you also need to have digital forms and allow your users to submit data to these digital forms. Maybe some of the data are already integrated with other systems. So you need a system and data pipelines that are integrated with current systems like ERP. And today, artificial intelligence can also help you extract information much faster than previously. All these data collection layers should also be connected with and be according to the corresponding frameworks, either GRI, ESRS, or questionnaires for external rating agency. Those data collection layers should represent those data points and include those data points. Then we move to the third layer, which is actually the consolidation and calculation layer. In this layer, all data that were collected from the 2 previous layers are consolidated in a main dashboard. This is mapped with the corresponding conversion emission factors, the ones that you choose with your consultancy or internally, in order to calculate the emissions. Also, for other KPIs, for example, for safety, you need to correlate data from HR data for man-hours, for example, and accidents from the health and safety. So in this case, you need to correlate the data from different areas, and this is the layer that you do this advanced KPIs calculations. And then we move to the fourth reporting layer. In our case, we utilize 2 tools, Microsoft Power BI and Word, Power BI for dashboards and Word for exporting the final, let's say, essay. And this could include tables, it can include charts, it can include text for a different kind of data points. Now, I will move to some tips, starting with collaboration, a few practical tips. First, again, as we mentioned, it's important to have clear ownership. This means that each data point should have a responsible person. Second, you need to give each contributor a dedicated workspace. Don't mix everything in one place. Third, you need to automate communication. Use notifications and reminders instead of manual follow-ups. And finally, make sure that you have real-time visibility on the progress of data collection, so you can immediately spot gaps or delays. These actually simple steps already will remove a lot of friction from ESG data collection. Now, another tip is around how to ensure high quality of data. Here are 4 different ways how to improve that. First, we suggest where it's applicable to apply validation rules, like mandatory fields, acceptable value ranges, etc. Second, where it makes sense, you should also introduce approval processes. So data are reviewed before are finalized. And third and fourth, actually, which is the AI version of the visual warnings. With visual warnings, what you can do is you can immediately highlight inconsistencies with a graphical interface. Now, today, with artificial intelligence, this becomes automatic, and you can actually detect anomalies or missing data via AI agents. independence, but together they significantly can improve the reliability of your ESG data. Now let's look at reporting, especially across multiple frameworks. I think this was also a question from the previous of Darya's sessions that you responded that this is a challenge for you. A few practical approaches here. First, let's start with, we suggest to start with a base framework. As you can see here in this video, for example, it's the GRI standards. You should start with a framework, an ESG framework, and you, instead of treating every framework separately, what we suggest is to add all the additional data points from the other frameworks that we need to report, or the questionnaires of the rating agencies, to this base layer. Then allow your users to collect data once and reuse it across different frameworks. Finally, build a dynamic report where you can filter and adapt the outputs depending on the frameworks or the audience. For example, you can see in this example that this company over here reports with a single data collection process, can report to 5 different frameworks: the GRI, ESRS, the local stock exchange, Bloomberg, and an internal KPIs that is called Elactor. Finally, adaptability. ESG requirements are constantly, as you know, evolving, and this is where flexibility becomes very critical. You can see here what is our approach on that. This is a video again of an AI-powered questionnaire builder. What you can do instead of manually creating or updating ESG data collection forms, you can simply define your requirements, upload a document, and then the system actually generates a structured questionnaire based on the information that you have provided. And again, then with drag and drop tools, you can edit this questionnaire. Let me move it a bit forward. You can edit this for the final version of it. So this is how we view as a company fast adaptation to changing requirements. But changing requirements also affect the, you should also change the report. So in this case, what we suggest is instead of utilizing fixed dashboards, use tools like Microsoft Power BI in this case, that are dynamic BI tools, and also enable conversational AI for reporting. So if you need a report at a point, you just request it from the system and it builds it for you. This is also something that is very recently available. So thank you. Just to wrap up, achieving strong sustainability ratings is not just about how you report, but how you manage your data. We believe that organizations that succeed are the ones that build a structured, reliable ESG data process from collection to validation and reporting. Thank you very much for your time. Of course, if we have, happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Panos, for these insights. Before we move to the agency perspective, I know we're running a bit behind, but it would be lovely if you could all stay for the Q&A portion at the end. Now we have Alicia from S&P Global, Alicia Ayers. Welcome. Alicia is responsible for the strategic direction of the corporate sustainability assessment across both Europe and Latin America. And today she's pulling back the curtain on how S&P uses the information you provide to determine your final score. Alicia, the floor is yours, and thank you.
Perfect, thank you. I'm just going to share. Bear with me one moment. Hopefully you see my...
Yeah, it's good.
Perfect. Great. I will be quick, recognizing we are a little bit behind. But thank you everyone for joining today, and it's a pleasure to be here. The CSA looks at sustainability through an investor lens. And for those of you who aren't aware, it was established in 1999 by a boutique asset management firm in Zurich, Switzerland. And this is really when sustainability investing was very niche. So we've got 26, 27 years of experience in understanding and developing an ESG approach and an ESG questionnaire. The idea then and now is that companies are able to clearly understand the link between sustainability and their business case. And those that do understand that link will perform better in the long run. Therefore, the CSA assesses sustainability factors that are expected to impact a company's value drivers. To be able to do that, we ask questions that don't just sort of seek clarity of a company's ability to disclose. These questions also help companies to understand the depth of expected disclosure and to help them assess their performance. Both against the CSA methodology and against their industry peers, the questionnaire helps companies to really understand sort of their performance, and ultimately, though we do ask tough questions, the feedback we get is that they are the right questions to be asking, that companies are better prepared to understand and complete their the CSA. Apologies, that slide shouldn't have moved forward just yet. Realistically as well, we recognize that there's a growing trend for standardization. The key differentiator between the CSA and the standard is that the CSA really helps companies understand the quality of their disclosure and their performance. So how does the CSA process work? There are 3 distinct steps, and recognizing that Darya did provide a little bit of insight into this as well. Hopefully I can move through the slide quickly. Essentially, it's preparation, participation, and publication. So every year we invite over 12,000 companies to participate in the CSA. The primary reason for being invited is eligibility for one of our flagship indices. This could be either the Dow Jones Best in Class or our scored and screened indices. If you're familiar with the CSA, you're probably more familiar with the Dow Jones Sustainability Indices. It's the same thing. We recently had a name change. So in case there's any confusion, DJSI is the same thing as Dow Jones Best in Class. We also welcome companies to participate on a voluntary basis, which is the CSA as a service. So if you are in the audience today, you're curious about participation, but you haven't received our formal invitation, we'd welcome you to reach out and we can provide more information. Preparation really starts with us. We establish that universe, as I mentioned. We also work with our colleagues supporting voluntary participants, and this happens in the first quarter. Tomorrow, we actually open the CSA for 2026. So from early tomorrow morning, companies will be able to view the questionnaire and get a sense for sort of what participation looks like for them. Moving forward, once a company participates, as mentioned, it's a 2-week window, a 2-month window that companies can utilize to participate. Once they have submitted their questionnaire, that's when our analyst team gets to work. The CSA data is not, sorry, I don't know why this is moving forward. My apologies. CSA data is not taken as submitted. We review the information and the resources provided, and we determine if that information meets our criteria. I do have a poll, so if you bear with me one moment, let's get that up. So hopefully you can see that now.
Yes.
Great. Got a few answers coming in. Perfect. I think maybe there's a few of you in the audience who know who know what I'm asking, so that's perfect. I'll give it another 20 seconds and then we can move forward. Great. Okay. So a few not sures. A few of you sort of correctly identified that the CSA applies a common framework with industry-specific criteria and weightings. So I'll just share those results very quickly, and you can have a look. So moving forward, now it won't move. Okay, now it's moved too much. No, it's still moving too much. Perfect. So drilling down into the questionnaire a little bit, as mentioned, the CSA uses a consistent rules-based methodology with specific approaches for 62 different industries. Approximately 100 questions for each industry fall under one of roughly 23 different themes or criteria, as we call them, and that all sits within the overall banner of ESG. Roughly 50% of the questionnaire is common to all industries, so that will be things like governance, so how your board is set up, your sort of taxes, your policies and procedures, human rights policies, things like that. And then the other 50% of the questionnaire will be specific to your individual industry. Even with specific questions, that doesn't necessarily mean that the weighting applied will be the same. So you'll notice as well, and I think what was really interesting in part of Darya's presentation was looking at the sort of scoring, in particular for companies and their different industries. Ultimately, all of this is weighted. So you will find that companies within sort of professional services tend to score much differently than companies in metals and minings and oil and gas. This is due largely to some of those performance elements that I was mentioning. And as an illustration, you can sort of see here, this is how the weights are broken down across 3 different sectors. So you can see within pharmaceuticals that governance and economic dimension is very heavily weighted versus the environmental dimension, which is relatively minor in comparison. This is recognizing that really the important elements of the questionnaire as related to pharmaceuticals are going to be in around that governance and economic issues, same with social issues. Product stewardship is really the sort of key indicator for the pharmaceuticals. And all of this is based on, as I said, 27 years of rigorous research and analysis by our research team, but also in conjunction with the investor community that we work with. The slideshow seems to be having a mind of its own, but that's all right. I was ready to move forward anyway. So how does this all work? Come on now. As mentioned, we do accept private information. I think that is an important distinction between the CSA and other ratings providers. While 50% of the questionnaire does request information two-thirds, 66% of the questionnaire does request information in the public domain. We do also allow for the submission of private information. These questions in particular are what we call partially public. So in the event that information is not in the public domain, you can still supply that information and still eligible for points and scoring as part of your CSA approach. It's just that you're not eligible for the full 100 points for the question if that information is in the private domain or is not published. I think these slides in particular, the next 2 slides, I'm just conscious that we are butting up against the hour. I'll go through these quickly. I think beyond CSA as a sort of tool for engagement and that sort of that sort of performance element, I think one thing that's very important to highlight is that the CSA does have a history of identifying emerging trends. And this really allows companies to get ahead of investors, to get ahead of regulators. This chart in particular illustrates the history of some key criterion in the CSA and how our thinking has not only challenged companies to push the boundaries, but also been at the forefront of that information collection exercise. Using human capital development as an example, this criterion was introduced in 2002, and at the time, questions were very basic. They were easy to cover, like occupational health and safety, and whether the company was able to track the time and money invested into training their employees. Over time, this question has developed into a very sophisticated set of questions that really challenge companies to understand how the money they invest is training their workforce and how this is really translating into a business benefit. When these more challenging questions are introduced, companies tend to say that measuring the impact is impossible, but from our position, we see that if investor is asking for this information, if the investor is asking, why a company would benefit if they have $10 million to sort of invest, we want companies to be able to translate that into actual cost savings. So ultimately, this is about pushing the boundary a little bit, being ahead of the curve and enabling companies to effectively answer their investor community while also gathering information that's relevant to their business. This is really sort of how it breaks down, and I think this chart does a nice job of providing an illustration of how we develop questions over time. The connection between sustainability and business issues is always sort of front and center. The idea of the CSA is really to identify those intangible factors that impact company value drivers, so that's growth, profitability, capital efficiency, risk exposure. And in the chart, you see that the measures a company introduced to increase employee satisfaction and engagement and well-being ultimately impacts the ability of their workforce to innovate, as institutional knowledge is not lost through voluntary turnover. This means that the company can produce more advanced technologies, products, services, and with that, generate higher revenues. Lower absentee rates because employees have less work-related accidents, higher engagement, and higher work morale leads to increased profitability. I think companies tend to understand these relationships, but having a way to measure and then communicate the intangible factors really helps to drive benefits of programs that have historically been viewed as nice to have, but maybe not as a business essential. I'll just sort of skip through this quickly, and I know I haven't sort of done any more polls, but as we are a little bit over time now, I'm just going to fly through the end of my slides. I think finally one important thing to drive home is that the use of CSA results is shared through our capital market user platform, CapIQ Pro. So that is down to the data point level information. More than 500 investor clients headquartered in nearly 50 countries directly subscribe to this data. That also represents 58 trillion in assets under management. So this information is heavily sort of profiled across our capital market user platform and increasingly useful for investment decisions by our subscribers. I think we do have additional sort of support resources and contact information here for you. I'd be very pleased to spend a little bit more time sort of walking you through the process, answering any questions you may have. You can reach out to myself, my team on the CSA helpline, that's csa@spglobal.com. And as the team will be sharing these slides, you can take a look at some of the resources that I have provided there. I'll just stop there.
Thank you, Alicia, for these insights into the CSA process. If anyone can stay 5 minutes more, we can take a few questions. We already have one for Pavel and Darya from Pavel on how AI can improve Scope 3 emissions and how AI integration affects labor force in ESG career. If one of you would like to take this one, thank you.
AI tools. In general, AI helps the company to prepare more reliable, more trustful data and to prepare it in a more quicker form. And this is a part of the methodology because as I have described already before, the quality of the data is really important. And for example, if we're talking about Scope 3 emissions, we're talking about different or maybe small companies in your supply chain, and not all that companies have an ability ability to have a separate team with strong expertise how to calculate greenhouse gas emissions, for example. But AI tools provide to these small companies such kind of opportunities by different tools as calculators, etc. And they can simply have an access to these tools without buying some very expensive advisory teams or some very expensive database, etc. So it simplifies to these small companies access to reliable data, and by the end, this quality of the data will help to you as a big company to gather all this information with better quality and with better speed, for example. And as a result, it provides you an opportunity to gain a better ESG score, because data quality is part of the methodology on which ESG ratings are looking at.
Okay. Thank you, Darya. I think Panos maybe could also chime in on this question.
Yeah, sure. From the software provider angle, I will build on that. I mean, I agree with Darius on what described, but I think that AI helps mainly in three ways, actually. First, in the data collection structuring layer, AI can extract data from document, invoices, or supplier reports, reducing manual effort. Second, it can help with gap filling and estimation. In scope 3, a lot of times data is missing, and then AI can help suggest, not submit, of course, but suggest estimates based on patterns or historical data. And third, it's the data quality and anomaly detection. AI can flag inconsistencies or unusual values across large data sets, which is very common in scope 3. So from Tekmon perspective, this is less about replacing methodologies and more about making complex and fragmented data manageable and usable at scale.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah,
Panos.
thank you.
And we can continue with you, because a lot of the people in the audience may be wondering about the Tekmon platform. Is it cloud software, and how do you price it? Maybe a more practical question for the audience here in terms of that.
Yeah, very briefly, of course, they can contact us for more information, but it's a cloud-based platform. Users can access via browser, and it's designed to scale across organizations and locations. In terms of pricing, it's typically depends on the scope and complexity of the use case. Key factors include number of users and scope of ESG reporting. For example, scope 1, 2, multiple frameworks, ready-made ESG rating questionnaires. So it's rather than one size fits all. We usually tailor the setup and pricing based on each organizational needs. So for everyone interested, of course, we are happy to discuss.
Great. Thank you. And I have one for Alicia regarding the CSA process. How can one check if they have been invited to participate? I think you mentioned that it's open today, the invitations have been sent out, so just check their inbox, or
Yeah, inbox is the first step, and then we do have an invited companies lookup page on the S&P Global website. I think I shared the link in the deck. So what you can do is you can go and check, so you can pop your company name in there, and then if you see that your company is invited, you can reach out to us, and we can either put you in touch with your colleagues who may have already registered your company account, and or we can help you get registered on the sustainability reporting portal. Registration is free. All participation is free if you're an invited company, and registering on the portal does not commit you to participating, but it allows you to log in, have a look around, and get a better sense for the CSA.
Great. Thank you, Alicia. I think that's all we have time for today. Thank you to all of the experts for your time, and thank you to the audience for joining us today and for staying a bit longer than expected. Just keep an eye out on your inbox for the recording and the deck of presentations, and contact us if you have any questions. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.